So today we will be talking about something that I find interesting, and it's an argument that like I heard a lot of trans activists pull, and I did my research and I came to some conclusions about it, and it's like really kind of fucking with me, so I had to make a rant video about it. So there's this whole big debate, as a lot of trans people know, about do you need gender dysphoria to be trans? And some people would say you don't need gender dysphoria to be trans. And if you don't know what gender dysphoria is, it's basically like the motivation to want to transition. It's when, you know, it's not necessarily like, it's basically where your brain and your body don't match up. So like my brain at birth said like female, and it still says female, but my biology said male. So for a bit, like I was very dysphoric and still am occasionally, but I basically suffer from gender dysphoria because my brain doesn't match with my body. So, and some people think that you don't need that to be trans, and you can just be trans for fun and shits and giggles and shit, and like, not here for it. And then there's another side of the argument though with gender euphoria. And if you don't know what euphoria is, it's basically you get like intense excitement or intense pleasure from something, and like euphoria comes in many shapes and sizes and forms, and it comes out in different ways. Some people feel euphoria when they like clean something, or when they listen to some type of music, or when they run. But with gender euphoria, it's like when you're called the right pronouns and you feel good, or when you're called like the name you want to be called by and you like it. It's like that kind of thing. And some people think that that's like a good enough thing to be diagnosed with like gender dysphoria, or being like a trans person, a real trans person. And I have to say that that is bullshit. I just don't believe that going off of gender euphoria alone is good enough to call somebody trans. And here's why. Euphoria is temporary. Euphoria is a temporary feeling. If it wasn't a temporary feeling, it wouldn't be euphoria, because you'd constantly be feeling it. So what happens when you don't feel euphoric about your gender? Are you just like not trans anymore? So like, am I a boy every time I don't feel like I'm euphoric about something? Like, no. So I think gender dysphoria and what you're dysphoric about and how things that negatively affect you is more of the proper way to diagnose a trans person. Because, for example, when they look at OCD people, when they look at drug addicts, when they look at alcoholics, they don't capture their feelings when they're in the moment of euphoria. They capture the feelings when they lack what substance they have. They catch them in the feelings of what happens to them when they don't feel that euphoria. And usually they'll get like the shakes, or they'll get very anxious, or they'll get very paranoid. And so it's all about what they feel when they don't feel that euphoria. And I think the same goes for being transgender. It's all about marking and clocking the feelings that you don't feel, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Like when you don't feel euphoric about something, and when you feel, I guess, the opposite of gender euphoria would be dysphoria. So it's when you're dysphoric about something. The whole argument of just gender euphoria is like another way of being trans. It's like, it might be another aspect, and like I think it would be even more accurate to diagnose someone if they have both. So analyzing a person if they have gender dysphoria and what they're dysphoric about, and also what they are euphoric about. So I think you should get a little bit of a mix of both, because also with, you know, going back to OCD and other mental disorders, and even like drug addicts and alcoholism, you also kind of do have to mark down what it is that makes them euphoric too. So it's a little bit of both, but just going off by what someone is euphoric about is not an accurate way to diagnose someone with transgenderism. So a lot of people might be opposed to me right now, like, oh, why do you think you could dictate people's transgenderism? Why do you think you can like dictate others? Like, everybody's different. Everybody has a different way of transitioning. And I agree, like not everybody transitions the same. I'm not expecting everybody to hate themselves constantly, but the big part of transgenderism, and a big part of it, is the fact that you feel out of place. It's not necessarily that you have to hate yourself constantly. It's not necessarily that you want to jump off a bridge every 5 seconds, but it's an uncomfortable feeling. Being born something that you really realize you aren't is kind of shitty. And like, I think everybody, or at least a real trans person, could admit that being, you know, born something and you can't really change everything about it, and you can't really help it in every aspect, is like a little bit of a shitty thing to feel. And so when people just argue that like I'm dictating people's gender and I'm dictating people's transness, it's kind of bullshit, because I'm not dictating anything. I'm stating kind of the facts and what I think that transgenderism should be I guess, seen as. I'm not dictating it. I'm saying it should be seen as this because it's more accurate. I'm trying to treat trans people how everybody else would be treated in a medical and mental aspect. In a mental aspect, you know, doctors would look not only at the euphoria, but also at what makes the person not euphoric and what the person's state is when they're not feeling that euphoric feeling. And I think if anything, trans people should be treated the same. So call me a trans activist for wanting, you know, trans people to be taken as like the same as any other person. So I think that's all for my rant about this. I might do a part 2, and I definitely want to see the follow-up comments because I really never see videos about this. I've seen people like talk about gender euphoria and how that's valid in diagnosing a trans person, but I've never seen someone oppose that in any way. So I might do a follow-up with this. Definitely comment your thoughts on this. This is an open discussion. Anyway, thank y'all's balls so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do what you do, and I'll see y'all's balls in the next video. Here's the part where I show my ass. London out.